Welcome back to Evolving Waves, where we ride the tides of adversity to reach the shores of success. Today we are joined by Joe Gallagher Jr., known professionally as Chef Giuseppe, a man who has had quite the roller coaster ride throughout life, who went from facing attempted murder charges and spiraling into addiction to rebuilding his life completely and creating a thriving food empire. His journey is a testament to the power of redemption and the idea that no fall is a fall that's too far from grace. Join us today as Joe shares his inspiring story of hitting rock bottom and rising above it. A story that is sure to motivate anyone who is facing their own challenges to believe in second chances and redemption.
Before we get into his story, we want to quickly shout out our sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Stingray Branding, a national lead generation focused marketing agency that helps businesses generate an ROI from their marketing efforts, including web design, social media, Google search, email, automations, and more. Learn more about them at stingraybranding.com.
With that said, Joe, we're so happy to have you today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and it's a privilege. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're so thrilled to have you here taking the time to share your story with us. Before we get into the details of it, we do have to give a quick disclaimer. There's going to be a lot of heavy stuff in this episode today. In fact, all three of them, just like with Megan Brown, who actually introduced us to each other, we saw that there was so much to your story that we decided to make it a three-part trilogy. So throughout the three parts, there's going to be some heavy stuff, but especially in this first one, things are going to get heavy. So want to shout out the National Suicide Hotline. That's 988lifeline.org. Just dial 988-SUICIDE to talk in further detail and see for yourself that hope and help is available to you. So with that said, let's get into the crux of our episode. Joe, let's go back, and I mean way back, to your early days. What's life like growing up in New Haven?
I come from a good family, but it was, kind of on the rocks. My father wasn't too stable, and there's some violence and stuff like that, and I always kind of felt out of place, a little different, a little awkward socially, and we moved around a lot, so, I always had to keep reinventing myself, basically, different groups of friends, so I quickly became a chameleon of sorts, but that experience has led to my adaptability and everything else that I faced moving forward,
So a bit of a chameleon with aspirations for a music career. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so my uncles and cousins, I can remember vividly on Sundays in New Haven at my grandmother's house. She'd be cooking a sauce, and they'd be in the living room jamming on guitars, smoking weed, and all that kind of stuff. And I was like drawn to that like a moth to a flame. I just wanted to someday be able to play with them. So here I am, 8 years old at that time. And then eventually at the age of 15, I picked up a guitar and really started, working hard at trying to get to the level where I could perform with them.
Nice. And you got pretty close to getting a Grammy. So what did that moment mean to you? What did that journey mean to you? And how did that set the stage for your future?
Yeah, so I picked up the guitar at 15, started doing live shows at about 17, 18, started hosting open mics, and at George's 2 restaurant in Wallingford, Connecticut, I actually booked a band that was consisting of original members of the Wailers. So, and having that, being in that environment, I just was just so enamored by it, and I kept pushing. I ended up writing about 2,500 songs in 10 genres. So then in 2017, this is way later, but I was working with OB from the Hitmasters, which is LL Cool J's godson. So he works with a lot of rappers, but we put together a rock-infused album called Side Effects, and I was on a ballot for Best New Rock Artist for the 2017 Grammy nomination.
2017, yeah, 8 years ago, not that long ago. A series of traumatic events then befell you, to say the very least, including a kidnapping in the Bahamas, a severe accident, and attempted murder charges. So tell me what in the world happened, and then on top of that, how do each of these things impact you mentally?
The fact that I'm even smiling right now about this is crazy to me. So I was 21 years old. I just got married. I'm on my honeymoon with my first wife in the Bahamas, and I get off the boat. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's a guy betting the tourists $100 to outdrink him.
So this is a cruise you're taking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I get off the cruise ship. I'm on the beach, 8 o'clock in the morning. I took the bet, $100, no problem. I could drink with the best of them. Well, 22 shots later of some rum, and I think it was like 100 proof. I was blackout drunk, and I found myself at the Hard Rock Cafe at about 11, and my wife's inside. We're doing brunch. I go outside for a cigarette, and she was so against me smoking weed, but every chance I got, I was going for it. Well, a guy came by, said, "Hey man, you want some ganja?" I'm like, "Yes," and I just went, knee-jerk reaction. Didn't know I was getting on a bus that went 45 minutes into the middle of nowhere, and they jumped me. There was an abandoned restaurant. They brought me into the basement, and there was like 7 guys. They jumped me, took my chain, my watch, and all that, tied me up, and then they wanted me to drain my bank account and bring some cocaine on the boat, and so I told them I'd do whatever I had to do to stay alive because I really thought I was a dead man. And so 2 guys, we left the restaurant. 2 guys took me to the bank, and I came to. I had a moment of clarity where I saw it was a one-way street that they went down, and it was a real narrow street. So as soon as they pulled up to the bank, they let me out of the car, and I ran the opposite way. So they had to go all the way down to be able to turn around. And I started, I'm a fast runner. In high school, I did like 4-minute and 30-second mile. So I'm weaving in and out of neighborhoods, and there happened to be a cop waiting or at a clothing store who was already looking for me because they held the boat in port for 8 hours, which doesn't really happen. Usually they just, consider that person, whoever gets, in a situation like that, they're dead, So statistically, I am lucky to be alive.
So yeah, I got follow-ups to that. All right, so you're on this cruise ship, you get off, and you're bet that you cannot outdrink someone. Does this person, this is a local,
yeah,
is this person in any way tied to the people that?
I don't know. I have no idea. I was definitely a mark though, for sure. When that guy approached me outside the Hard Rock, it wasn't an accident. I mean, he knew what they were about to do. And I looked like an easy target. Tank top, bathing suit, flip flops, gold chain. Drunk, very drunk.
So you're still drunk by the time you're loaded onto this bus.
Yeah.
So who else is on the bus?
It was just me and this one guy.
So this entire bus is empty, save for the
no.
And
There was other people,
Okay.
But the bus went to it was like a rundown neighborhood, like the hood. There was prostitutes and I just remember it being very dirty, and like a ghost town. But when I got into the basement of that restaurant, there was like 7 guys with weapons.
So this is Nassau. This is Paris. Nassau. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is in Nassau, and I know the Bahamas. There's a lot of islands there, but there's not a whole lot of land that's connected to each other.
Right.
So you're driving from this cruise port in Nassau into the actual country, Bahamas, which is obviously very different from the resort.
Yeah, and they specifically said, the captain said before we got off the boat, was like, don't leave the reservation. Don't start exploring outside of where the excursions were, which is really all close to that downtown area and the beach right there.
Okay, so they've got a computer. Obviously, they've got some electronics for you to be able to drain your bank account, as they say. So what were you supposed to do on the boat?
No, I was supposed to go to the ATM with my debit card.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're taking me to the bank, and there was like a like an outside ATM,
Gotcha.
It wasn't actually in the bank.
I see. Okay, so then they give you this. They said cocaine for the.
Yeah, they want and it was really hard to understand these guys because they get a real thick accent.
Yep.
So and plus I'm teetering in and out of consciousness. So what was said, I can't be exact, but yeah, there was something about cocaine, bringing it onto the boat to sell it. I don't know if I guess they wanted me to be a mule or something like that.
So was there anyone waiting for you on the other end of it to collect money or anything?
Well, I don't know. We didn't get that far because I took off,
see.
And I escaped, by the grace of God.
That's wild.
Yep.
That is certifiably wild. I mean, Megan had a lot of wild stuff too, but that probably takes the cake.
Yeah, and you know, that should have been enough to like realize I got a problem with alcohol. Like alcohol's getting me some pretty tight situations, and no, it took another 7 years before I walked into my first meeting.
Gotcha. Okay, and we're gonna get to that, but that was only part one. That was only one
Yeah.
of the three
Major
incidents. So you've got the severe accident. What happens with that?
So, 2017 Grammys, the voting starts in like October, and I think it was like November while I'm out promoting and stuff. But I'm still working. I had a company called Chucktown Paint where I deliver automotive paint supplies to all the body shops, and I'm at a red light. It was early in the morning, and somebody hit me from behind going like 60, a big truck, and totaled my car, and I had to have 2 spinal surgeries. They didn't think I was going to walk again.
Didn't think you were gonna walk again. You obviously did.
Yeah.
How long before you were able to walk again?
It was about 2 months, I want to say, 2-3 months of recovery, but I still had no feeling in my hands, and my music career was at that point pretty much over because I couldn't play guitar, and they cut through the front of my neck, so I moved my vocal cords, and my singing just wasn't the same anymore. And plus, at that point too, I had been so burnt out by the industry, and trying, grinding and hustling and trying to make a name for myself, and then I got so close, but I was living so fast. I think God had to stop me in my tracks. I was gonna die young, because I was doing cocaine at that point. I was doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So there is an addiction, I guess, to cocaine.
Everything. I got the addiction of more. If it makes me feel good and outside of myself, I want it. Money, power, women, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these are things that are outside of the three, I guess, the big three instances or incidents in your life. So the third one, attempted murder charges.
Yeah.
What in the world happens there?
So that wasn't long after I got out of the hospital. So I was getting cabin fever. I'm all hopped up on painkillers, Xanax, and all kinds of stuff. And I had to get out of the house. I had to try to feel human again. And I was so depressed and miserable because my life was over and didn't know what I was going to do with myself. So a friend was having a party at a Casey Mulligan's over there on 52 and Rivers Ave. And within 10 minutes, I saw a guy who was hammered drunk trying to drive. And being a good Samaritan, I said, buddy, you can't drive. Here, I was sober. I was hopped up on pills, but I wasn't drinking. And I was trying my hardest not to drink because I knew drinking was getting me, into some stuff. So I took him home, and he invited me in for some 18-year-old bourbon, and I couldn't say no. Went in, and then him and his 300-pound gorilla of a roommate tried robbing me. And I happened to have a 2-inch pocket knife on me that day. I never carry weapons. I was used to just fight my hands, street fight. I was confident with my skills, but I just had back surgery. I figured I'm going out to a bar, I should have something. And sure enough, I thought they were going for guns. And I held one guy at knife point. I cut him on his arm. I gave him like a little paper cut, but my finger was dangling because I was so scared that I was holding the blade by my hand. Didn't even realize it. So there's blood everywhere. I lost track of the guy that I brought there, and so I'm tussling with the big guy. He goes into the other room. I thought to get a shotgun or something, and he was calling the cops. Cops show up, and there I am, covered in blood. I got the other guy stripped down naked. I strip searched him to make sure he didn't have nothing on him, And cops show up and charge me with attempted murder.
This is in 2017.
2018, because I think it was January, February of 2018, yeah.
Okay, so my first thought to that, well, my second thought to that, my first thought is Jesus. My second thought to that is, all right, there's blood everywhere, but there's DNA testing nowadays.
Right.
So you must not have, because the blood was yours.
Yeah.
So your blood being on there is not going to really result in you being charged with manslaughter, but you were, or attempted murder at first, but that was the initial
That was the charge.
result. So,
and the cop, so here's the thing. The cop was really angry with me because about, I don't know, a few months prior, I was at Cookout on University, all hopped up on Xanax, not drinking, but it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I fell asleep in the drive-thru for like a half hour. People were beeping the horn, and I'm just nodded out. And that cop, the same cop that was first on the scene there, was on the scene there, and he was so pissed off that night because I passed the sobriety test. He had me walk the straight line. I passed, and he couldn't take me away for a DUI. So, my luck would have it, he's the guy that showed up on the scene.
So then what happens?
So, I'm in jail for, I think it was like 15 days. It wasn't too long, but my father ended up paying the bond. It was like $50,000. that was really my first offense too. That was my first arrest. So because of that, I got out, and but there's a pending case. You know, it took like 4 or 5 years, 5 years for that to get expunged. You know, they really wanted to take me down, especially because within that 5 years, now I racked up a DUI charge, domestic violence charge, a reckless driving charge, leaving the scene of an accident charge. So now, you know, they're trying to rope it all together after the domestic violence charge.
Domestic violence charge. That's domestic violence?
No, I smashed some stuff in my house, and my wife ended up calling the cops. This was January of 2024.
Okay.
So recent.
Yeah.
That was my last charge.
About a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, yeah, we got a lot to dissect with that. But as you touched on, there is addiction. There was a loss of everything. You lost your career, you lost your family, you lost some of your security. I'm sure you lost some of your friends.
Yeah.
Tell me about the struggle there and where the strength comes from to just keep going.
You know, I'm resilient, man. You know, I fall down, I get back up, and because I think my father's strong will and determination and everything he put his mind to, and you know, I watched him through heroin addiction, and he was an alcoholic too. He cold turkey gave it up at the age of 44, so I knew it was possible, you know, and I seen him start a successful business. I mean, he ended up retiring like 2 years ago, sold 9 companies that he built pretty much from scratch for like 17 million.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, addiction is so real. It's so easy to get addicted and so hard to quit. I mean, and it can take any different form. Like there's gambling, there's porn, there's alcohol, there's drugs. I mean, it's so easy to fall into any of those, and it's so hard to quit. So how did you?
So here, what I've come to learn is that it's an allergy, and it's in the brain, and it's an obsession of the mind, and there's a phenomenon of craving that occurs in people with the disease that doesn't occur in normal people. Some people could just take one and leave it alone, but for somebody like me, you know, I'm searching and using all these outside substances to really fill that void in my soul. It's a spiritual disease. As much as it is physical and mental. So once you straighten out spiritually, the body and mind follow. So that's, you know, I was looking for those substances as a solution to living life. You know, I have no solution to life. You know, I didn't know that it's all God or nothing.
So it was faith that wound up saving you from
100%.
From going down this road. So tell me a little bit more about your journey throughout your spirituality here.
You know, so I grew up in the Catholic Church, and at a young age, I think it was like 13, I was in the choir, and I was molested by a music director. So, you know, I had this battle of, you know, just being on the defense all the time, you know, having this wall up and not letting anybody in too close. So back to like being the chameleon and adapting to surrounding, you know, I would just, if somebody had what I wanted, you know, to make me feel better about who I or what I was, then I would hang with that crowd until, you know, my addictions would ruin those relationships, and I'd move on to the next group, you know. So,
I mean, I didn't even know about the molestation issue. So, I mean, are you open to sharing a detail about that, or?
I mean, it's tough, and it wasn't like overtly. It wasn't like as like a filthy of a situation as, you know, that word kind of conjures up. You know, molestation could be a bunch of different, you know, approaches. Sure. You know, and that wasn't the only time that's happened, but that was the first time that somebody, a male authority figure, you know, just got a little too sexual.
Touchy.
Yeah. Yep. And so, yeah, I say molested, but it was more of an intimidation and using a sexual advance that was supposed to, you know.
Still very wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he had
clearly a line that's crossed.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you see any correlation between that and the other issues that wound up following, or you think they were just completely unrelated?
It was just another circumstance of me in a spot where I feel like people are against me, you know, and things are happening to me that I have to compensate with something like, you know, a substance or, you know, some kind of sin, really, pride, greed, lust, all that stuff. That's, you know.
Yeah. Wow, I mean, I told you guys it was gonna get heavy. I didn't know the extent of it, but I told you guys it was gonna get heavy. But so okay, so you finally make the decision that it's time to fix it. It's time to put all this behind you. Where does that aha moment or that light bulb or that snap of a finger sort of take place?
So let me back up a little bit. So when I was like, I want to say 25, the third time I was admitted to the psych ward. Okay, so for suicide attempts, I had 3 or 4 suicide attempts where I'd harmed myself. And anyway, this is the third time I'm at Yale New Haven Hospital, and somebody from a recovery organization came in and told her story. And this is like a 70-year-old woman that I didn't think I was going to have anything in common with. I'm just sitting there like, yeah, okay. But she started talking about a lot of the feelings that I had growing up. So I went to a meeting after I got out of that psych ward.
Okay, and how does that meeting go?
So, I felt welcomed. I felt like I kind of belonged because I heard some stuff that was like, okay, yeah, these might be my people. I don't know. But I wasn't completely willing to, like, do everything that was required. And I really didn't know what was required, but I just knew I wasn't going to do much. I was just coming there, getting the coffee, staying sober, and started to kind of have friendships, that felt authentic. And I didn't think these people were going to try to hurt me.
Gotcha. So you're in these meetings. You say that this is the turning point, as it is for most people who obviously get through these things, get to the other side of them. Was there something that was said in one of those meetings, or was there a certain thing that you said that made you think about it later on, or something that happened within the meetings that made you find the other side? Because you talked about your spirituality and your faith, but that seems like almost a separate sort of come to Jesus moment, not literally, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a secondary sort of light bulb moment for you.
Yeah, so like their whole philosophy is it's all inclusive, and they encourage you to find a higher power of your own understanding. So I didn't have to follow the doctrine of any one denomination. It kind of got left up to me to see where and what I was going to connect with. So I ended up experimenting with a lot of different stuff, Buddhism and Islam, and I started doing some research, but I wasn't willing to fully turn my will and my life over to a higher power. I was still on self will. I was going to outthink this thing. I was going to figure out a way to kind of have what these guys had, but do it my own way and reinvent the wheel.
Gotcha. And talk about reinventing the wheel. Maybe the moment you did that was when you brought this homemade sauce to one of these meetings. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, okay. So now I'm working the program hard. I'm like 2 months into my sobriety, and I got a sponsor who's telling me to pray to be maximum service of God and fellows. So I'm really taking everything this guy says, and I'm following it as best as I could to a T. I'm forgetting that I know anything from the previous stints of sobriety that I failed miserably. So here I am. There's an eating meeting, and I brought some eggplant parmesan, some spaghetti and meatballs, and somebody had, and I couldn't even get a job at Walmart at this point because those charges were all still pending. That Walmart wouldn't even hire me to bag groceries. And then I brought this spaghetti, and somebody said, "This is the best sauce I've ever had. Why don't you try selling this?" So I started looking into it, and sure enough, I was able to. I was going to do farmers markets at first, but then as I'm filling out all the paperwork to get involved in that, I decided to take my prototype, and I saw a sign outside of Piggly Wiggly, support local. I'm like, okay, well, let me see what I can do here. I walked in, said a prayer, walked in, talked to the manager, and he ordered 6 cases.
How in the world do you go from that to one of the fastest growing sauce companies in the South? 6 cases of 6 cases. You sold a lot more than that.
Yeah, I've sold about 7,038 jars in about 6 months of being in operation. Have 15 stores with pending orders from about 59 other stores, maybe even more, because there's a new distribution warehouse getting built in North Carolina, and they're gonna have like a couple hundred stores. So I don't know how it happened. I just know that people like the sauce. It's all natural. I go out there and I do product demonstrations, and the people love the story. And it is an all natural, healthy sauce product that doesn't really exist in the market.
How do you without giving away all your secrets, how do you create it?
Yeah, it's all fresh, and it's handmade. I'm cooking small batches, 6-7 hours, like grandma would do at home. So it's literally like homemade, basically. But I was at a commissary kitchen, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into your sauce details plenty more in the next couple episodes, but just to put a bow on part one of the trilogy here, there's a lot of pending charges against you at this point. How do those all get resolved, and how are you given this new lease on life to go ahead and keep going forward?
So my lawyer was able to work with the solicitor and get me enrolled in PTI, which is like pretrial intervention. So 26 weeks, I passed with flying colors, and no dirty drug tests. Kept my act together, and they expunged all the charges.
Very nice. See, so you do have a clean record until I think you said that about a year and a half ago there was one more incident at your house, and since then you've had no run-ins with the law.
No, and actually, so after completing PTI, all the charges that were pending got dropped.
Nice. So truly a new lease on life.
Yeah.
Clean record, clean
blank
slate.
Yep.
I love that. So you did it, Joe. You did it. It didn't look good when you're in that basement in the Bahamas. It didn't look good when you're wrestling with that, as you called it, 300-pound gorilla. And it definitely didn't look good as you were contemplating putting an end to it.
Yeah.
What do you tell people as someone who was in all those situations, and yet here you are today?
No matter how far down the scale you've gone, your experience can benefit others. And when you start living with a new purpose and other people, you have this altruistic mindset, and you start caring about others and the things that you do, and things start to change and surrender. God, I didn't do any of this really. I just put one foot in front of the other, was willing to, have a new perspective and trust the process of, and trusting my faith. And that's really it. And if it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody, and it's available to anybody.
So is faith the answer?
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. Yep, in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. It's not one specific kind of faith, though. It's just your faith in there being something above you that you can...
That wants the best for us, yeah. It's
whether that's Buddhism or Islam or Judaism or Christianity or any of the others, yeah.
Right. For me, it was Jesus Christ. That has been... I've been filled with the Holy Spirit. I have something now that I don't want to ever lose, and... I'm afraid of losing it. So I'm going to do everything I can. And it's going to be messy. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not trying to preach or, get on this moral hilltop, because I'm going to make mistakes. But as long as I don't drink today, I got a shot.
I like that. So last question here before we wrap up part one is, how would you define your legacy today in 2025?
It's still being written, man. There's a lot coming down the pike, and, I'm just going to keep pushing, and we're going to see what happens. A lot has happened, but there's a lot more to come. So I don't know what my legacy is right now. If I could help one person, that's my goal right now.
Well, I would say today you definitely have a very good chance at being the very mantra of our podcast, which is overcoming the tides of adversity to reach the shores of success, because you've already done that. You have done that, regardless of what is still to be written. You have done that. You have reached the other side. We're going to talk about the how a little bit more in the next couple episodes, but you have reached the other side of the alcohol abuse, of a situation where you didn't think you were going to make it out of the basement in the Bahamas or the room with the roommate, a 300-pound guy. You did come out of those. You overcame those pieces of adversity and reached the shores of success, which in this particular case is a very, very tasty pasta sauce that we're going to talk about coming up soon. But for now, that is part one of our series on Joe Gallagher. So as we wrap up today's episode, remember that in the face of adversity, there's always the potential for growth, resilience, and success. And if you don't believe me, look at this guy right here. Joe, we're looking forward to the next couple shows, but we really appreciate you sitting down and talking with us.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. Mm-hmm.